We are going to talk about a topic that honestly, I wonder if many people are even aware of, and that is having insurance coverage that you have on your own policy to make sure that you're covered in the event there are some harms or losses that you suffer from somebody else's negligence. And the truth is that car accidents are really an unfortunate reality in Missouri and across the nation, and they can lead to really significant injuries. You can experience some property damage, financial hardship, and really some life-altering impacts of being involved in a car accident. And the unfortunate situation is that in many cases, the driver who actually caused the accident or the one who's at fault um, doesn't carry enough insurance to cover all the damages. There are situations in which not having enough insurance coverage can really create a hurdle in receiving full compensation for our clients' injuries. And this is where uninsured as well as underinsured motorist coverage comes into play. What I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about the difference between uninsured motorist coverage and underinsured motorist coverage, and talk to you about some steps that you can take to make sure you get compensation if you're involved in an accident. So, first off, let's just talk about the difference. These words are so similar, it's easy to get them confused. But there is a huge difference between uninsured motorist coverage, or what we call UM coverage, and what's called underinsured motorist coverage, or what you would call UIM coverage. And the difference is meaningful in many respects. When we talk about uninsured motorist coverage, we're talking about a type of coverage that's required on every policy in the state of Missouri. And it comes into play where the person who caused the accident or the at-fault driver doesn't have any insurance at all. If the driver who caused the accident is uninsured, then you can file a claim with your own insurance coverage for your uninsured motorist coverage. This is in place to make sure, even if the at-fault driver doesn't have coverage, that you can still receive compensation for all the harms and losses. Now, that's a huge difference between uninsured motorist coverage and underinsured motorist coverage. And the difference lies in this. When we talked about uninsured motorist coverage coming into play when the other driver has no coverage, the underinsured motorist coverage comes into play when the other driver has too little coverage. In cases where the responsible driver does have insurance, but their coverage is too low to cover all the harms and losses, and assuming you have underinsured motorist coverage, then you can, of course, make a claim under your own policy for any and all injuries over and above what the other driver had for their coverage. And Missouri does require everybody to have minimum liability insurance. What that means is that for every accident, there should be at least $25,000 of bodily injury coverage per person, or $50,000 for the entire accident. Even though insurance is mandatory, one might think that there's going to be coverage, but unfortunately, many people just don't have coverage at all. There's some studies that indicate that there's actually a significant portion of drivers in Missouri who do not have any vehicle insurance, and they are creating a real risk for people who they get into accidents with. This is in part why the law requires all insurance companies in Missouri to provide uninsured motorist coverage at that state minimum of $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident. Underinsured motorist coverage, on the other hand, is not required, but I cannot advise more that you have it. It's critical to have it because the state minimum coverage is so low that if you're involved in a critical accident, that state minimum coverage of $25,000 isn't going to pay for all the harms and losses that you suffer. So I'd suggest that you call around, get quotes, and often what our clients find out is that underinsured motorist coverage is not terribly expensive for the benefit that it offers. It can be a critical component of recovery, having uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. And here's just a few reasons why. The uninsured motorist coverage is critical in the event that the at-fault driver, again, doesn't have coverage. If you're involved in an accident and the at-fault driver doesn't have coverage, then you may be left without any compensation, and you're going to have to rely on your own insurance coverage. But also, having underinsured motorist coverage, again, can be critical if the other driver has too little coverage and your injuries are more significant than what their coverage would pay for. It can also be critical to have increased uninsured motorist and increased uninsured motorist coverage for just some peace of mind. In the event that you are involved in an accident, relying on the person who hit you and having a good policy to make sure that you're covered is not necessarily the best approach. And knowing that you have enough coverage in the case worst case scenario happens can really bring some peace to know that your family and you may be taken care of in the event something bad happens. Also, the likelihood of getting full compensation goes up dramatically when you have higher uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist coverage. Because state minimum is so low, it's not uncommon for us to have clients with such significant injuries that the applicable insurance coverage just isn't enough. So if you're involved in an accident, you may have to file a claim under your own uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. And just an overview of the process would typically look like this. Often, especially if it's an injury accident, there's going to be a police report that's filed. That can be critical to make sure that all the information regarding the accident is kept in a good fashion. It's very vital in order to document all of the situation that took place to cause the accident in the first place. That police report will likely include details like the time, the location, the parties involved, as well as if anybody was issued a violation or citation. It can be really instrumental in establishing who was at fault if you're involved in an accident. After the accident, and of course, a police report is made, then you'll have to notify your insurance company. Once you've filed the police report and once you, of course, have received the immediate medical attention, then at some point, as soon as possible, a claim will need to be made. Our general advice is that the communication with the insurance company is critical. It's critical because they're using that information to gauge the significance and the amount that may need to get paid in any given claim. And it's why we love to walk our clients through the process. In fact, most of the time, cutting off communication all entirely with the insurance company and predominantly acting as the liaison for communication between our client and their insurance company. It's too easy to say something that later you wish you hadn't said in involving a car accident and communication with your insurance company. You'll next need to gather evidence. It's important that you have things like photographs. It's important you have things like medical records, witnesses' statements, as well as proof of lost wages. Because if we're making a claim against our insurance policy, we'll want to make sure that we have sufficient information to prove or legitimize the value that we're seeking for the harms and losses our clients have suffered. There'll, of course, be negotiations that take place. I had previously indicated that you should never accept an insurance company's first offer, and this is where that negotiation comes in. Insurance companies are businesses at the end of the day. They're trying to minimize losses and maximize profit. And so, in order to obtain full compensation for your injuries, it'll be critical to make sure to successfully negotiate what took place and the compensation they're willing to pay in order to resolve the matter. In the event you cannot resolve the case, then many of our clients are involved in litigation where we file the case with the court because we're unable to reach a resolution with the insurance company. And we have to involve the court in helping us decide what the value of the claim is. Now, it's important that every case has a statute of limitations. And what a statute of limitations is a time period in which a claim must be filed by, or you're forever barred by bringing the claim. So our general rule to clients is don't wait. If you're involved in an accident and we potentially may need to gather evidence, talk to witnesses, there may be medical attention, communication with the insurance company, act sooner than later because as time goes on, the evidence and information we may need in order to pursue this case successfully oftentimes disappears. Also, you cannot miss the statute of limitations, otherwise it'll forever prevent you from bringing a cause of action. At the end of the day, insurance can be complicated. Not only understanding the types, but also the policy for each and every insurance policy is critically important to get full compensation for our clients. So our suggestion is pretty common the same. We don't charge for consults, and you don't pay unless we successfully collect on your matter. So please take the opportunity, give our office a call, and let us help you through this process to make sure that you get compensated for the harms and losses that you may have suffered.